Boom, you looking for this?
Welcome back to Boom Shot. I'm Kel, this is Colby.
And this is Maddie, Lord of the Rings expert, here to break down the trailer that dropped during the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so, let's waste no time. Let's go ahead and jump right into it.
Haven't you ever wondered what else is out there? There's wonders in this world beyond our wandering. I can feel it.
Alright, so it's important to remember that the show takes place way before the events that we see happen in Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, which is the most well-known of Tolkien's works. So let's dive into the first 18 seconds. The first scene we see that the whole trailer opens up with, I'm pretty sure is the island of Numenor, and there's a few giveaways that we can kind of assume that it is Numenor. The first one is the mountain in the background. That's kind of their holy mountain. It's called Meneltarma. And then the second is the boats. The boats look a lot different than the elven boats that we see in Lord of the Rings and stuff. Okay, and then the other giveaway is the statue. And the statue is very similar. Fans of Lord of the Rings probably know that it's super similar to the statues that we see in the Fellowship of the Ring called the Argonath, and that's when they're floating down the river. And actually the people who built that statue were the descendants of Numenor. So we can kind of see similar architecture. This is a huge part of Tolkien's world, so I really think that the storylines of this will play a huge part in this show. The second thing that we see is the two moose wonder travelers. Really have no clue what they are.
What?
But I'm kind of like hypothesizing that the voiceover being done, we know is by, or what we are assuming to know, is done by a Harfoot, which are the predecessors of the Hobbits. So the Hobbits that we know of are descended from the Harfoots.
Oh.
And I'm hypothesizing that the two wanderers are going to be the two Harfoots that we see.
Okay.
Interesting.
So would this be a good place to start as somebody who has not seen any of the Lord of the Rings
Is this
movies?
chronologically going to be the first thing?
I mean,
So this would be like starting with the
chronologically.
prequels in Star Wars, but should you watch the originals first?
yeah, but I don't think it would be necessary
Okay, all right.
because this is going to be like its own thing. I mean, it has some things that tie into the Lord of the Rings, not really the Hobbit, but it's not necessary to watch those movies to understand this.
So what would you recommend watching first, this or the Lord of the Rings? I mean,
Don't ask me that.
You got until September 2nd, those watching.
Yeah.
I mean, the long movies aren't going to be
I would recommend reading the book.
Okay.
Well, you have an official recommendation.
Okay, The Silmarillion, because that's where a lot of this show is being drawn from, is the book The Silmarillion, which is actually my favorite of Tolkien's works. So.
Interesting.
Well, anyway, let's jump into the next clip.
Alright, so in the second part of this clip that we're analyzing, it starts kind of like there's icy, barren wilderness and a waterfall. And I'm assuming that this would be the Northern Waste. And the next scene we see is confirmed Galadriel, who is a character that we see in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. She's kind of really pivotal in all of those movies. So in this movie, she's like 2,000 years old by this point, but this movie is like 1,000 years before The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So you can do some math.
Is she the
she's
Yaddle
a young
of
elf in this point.
She's the Yoda.
No. Anyways.
Disrespectful.
She's not the Yoda. Anyways. There's also, we can see in the background, there's people climbing behind her. So there's different theories floating around about what exactly they're doing. Really not sure because the timeline in this show is really hard to pinpoint. But moving on from that, we see kind of a raft floating in the sea. And this character that's on the raft is non-canon. It's made up specifically for the show, and his name is Hallbrand. Now, he supposedly has a dark past. Really not sure how far he's going to play into the show, but he's supposed to kind of help Galadriel, but we'll get to that later.
How do you know this guy if he's non-canon?
Because
He's been
Vanity
confirmed?
Fair has
Okay.
already viewed it, and the show itself has come out and released the characters.
Oh.
Okay, so the next character we see is the elf Arendir, and he's also non-canon. He's made up specifically for the show. He in a really cool scene, which I hope they don't do slow-mo in the show because that kind of takes away from the coolness of the elves. He grabs the arrow before it hits the ground and shooting someone, he shoots it back. So I think that's super
Okay.
cool.
So is that going to be in the show? Or is that in the trailer? Was that in the
That's
trailer?
in the trailer.
Okay.
But in
But
the
it was slow-mo in the trailer?
yeah, and I'm hoping that it's not slow-mo in the show.
What's
they,
our official
they really
prediction?
don't need. I hope they don't make it, but
That's
I'm
not a
honestly at this point I'm really not confident. But we'll get
You
away
never
from
know.
that. Arondir, the non-canon character, falls in love with the also non-canon character, a human, which we've already kind of seen this parallels in Lord of the Rings between Aragorn and Arwen. You know, Arwen was the elf princess who fell in love with Aragorn, the dethroned king. So we're gonna see kind of that dynamic, but this human is a healer, so she's not really that high up on the chain of things. At this point, elves and kind of view men as like the lesser people because they're not as fabulous as them, but we'll just get away from that.
Classic.
Okay?
Is my boy going to be in this show? My elf guy? Me and
Legolas?
Kale don't... Yeah, Legolas.
Yeah.
No, he's not.
No.
He's not born at this point
Oh, okay.
yet.
That's a moral
I'm
of the show.
pretty sure.
I'm already not going to watch.
He's born at the tail end of this age. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, me and
okay.
Kale...
He's like a kid.
We're not the experts that Maddie are.
I know more about Bakugan than I know about this show.
Okay, and then one scene, I'm really not sure what could be going on here, but we see a meteor, okay, and then we see an elf looking up, not sure if he's actually looking up at the meteor, but the elf confirmed is Gil-galad, and he's the last High King of the elves. Lots of stuff happens, I don't want to spoil it, but it's kind of a tragedy. And we can kind of figure out that he is Gil-galad from the golden leaves on the ground. He was actually given the seeds of those trees that made the golden leaves, and they ended up with Galadriel and Lothlorien that we see later in the Lord of the Rings. So that's kind of the background on that and kind of the giveaway of why we think it's Gil-galad.
Okay. Could this meteor be leading to anything? Like,
Yes, because but there's another scene in the trailer that kind of gives off meteor vibes, but I'll talk about that later.
okay.
Hold on, question. Just real quick. How does a meteor get to Middle Earth?
What do you mean?
How does it get to the middle of the earth?
They have the sky and stuff.
This is all made up. I thought this was real. Anyway, let's jump into the last clip.
Alright, so the last third of the clip that we're going to be analyzing starts off with kind of this majestic trees on a cliff, waterfall, kind of gives off elven vibes. But if you zoom in very closely, I have a theory that this could actually be the 9 kings receiving the rings of power. And to give some background, we know that Sauron, who is called Anatar during this point because the elves think he's actually an elf and he kind of deceives everyone into giving them the rings of power, which he can all rule over. One ring to rule them all, which is what the Lord of the Rings is about. But he gives the 9 rings, which I'm thinking this scene has to do with, and we later see those 9 kings become demented. They're the 9 ring race that we see in the Lord of the Rings that ride around on the black horses and scare people, you know. Then later they ride on the dragon things, which I forget the name of at this moment, but they're called Nazgul at that point. So that's what they later become. But my theory is at this point, they're still human kings and they're receiving the ring. So I think that they're later the show is going to show the downfall of this and the downfall of a lot
very
of
interesting.
things.
Prediction alert, dude. I like
That's
that.
very interesting. So is the one ring to rule them all the precious ring?
Yeah.
Is that one of them, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The one ring to rule them all was supposed to control all the other rings. And they didn't just give rings to men. They gave 3 rings to the elves. And then they gave 7 rings to the dwarves. Now, Tolkien doesn't really talk about who received the dwarven rings, so I have a few theories on that
Okay.
as well.
Who's giving the rings out? Did I miss that part?
Sauron,
Okay.
aka Anatar, who's like, that's his cover-up name.
Yeah, so he's a bad dude. In
a bad
the future.
dude.
He's a bad dude in the future. Okay, just had to get that out of the way. Anyway,
All right, so the next
Interesting.
character we see is Durin the Fourth, who is actually, we see Thorin Oakenshield in The Hobbit. That's his ancestor.
I like
Yeah.
the first 4 letters of that name.
Thor Oaken?
Thor Odinson.
Not even close.
It's kind of close.
He's
Anyways.
way better, but
He is the ruler of the Dwarven kingdom Khazad-dûm, which we see in The Lord of the Rings as Moria, which is where Gandalf dies by the Balrog, okay?
I know who
So-
Gandalf is.
That's sad, dude.
All right. So at this point, every kingdom in Middle Earth is flourishing. It's really powerful, and we can. I think this will be a huge theme in the show, showing the downfalls of all these mighty kingdoms, which Khazad-dûm is one that experienced that. The next character we see after Durin is Elrond, who is the character from Lord of the
That
Rings
sounds familiar.
and The Hobbit. And this show, he's just starting out. He's like Galadriel. He's kind of young. Not really sure where he is in this scene, but I'm thinking he's with the dwarves for some reason. I also had a theory that he could be with the people that were forging the rings in the elf kingdom of Eregion, but I'm not really confident on that. I'm sure it's more likely that he's with the dwarves. We also see the dwarven princess Desi, who is also made up for the show, but I'm actually kind of excited for this character because it's the first female dwarf we've ever seen or have seen close up. So this is going to be like really big because
But they go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
They did exist previously, though.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if like it was like.
So this was an Amazon making something up.
Well, this character is made up.
Well, yeah, but like I'm talking about like the concept in general. Like
No.
okay.
No. Yeah, they definitely had dwarf women, which is talked about in Lord of the Rings, but it's more of like a joke because he jokes that Gimli jokes that they have beards.
Okay.
But Princess Desi doesn't.
So they ain't trying to pull no Wonder Woman crap.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Because Wonder Woman, yeah, it's an all female society.
Yeah, Themyscira or whatever it's called.
No, dwarves aren't all men
Okay.
because they have children.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
but
there's a way.
Themyscira-
There's a
anyway,
way they made it work.
that's not the point.
Okay. I was just wondering if that was a thing before. And
Yeah.
It just was.
I'm
No,
on
no.
that same wave.
It's different. It's definitely canon that they have.
Okay, well,
dwarf
that's
women.
Good stuff. I like
that's
Amazon
cool.
sticking to the source material.
That's cool.
Okay. I have a theory that Desi is actually one of the 7 dwarven ring bearers. Because Tolkien doesn't really write about who received the dwarven rings, at least not to my knowledge. We have theories that obviously they went to Durin, but as far as that point, not really else who they went to. So I'm pretty sure that Desi might receive one of the rings. And then kind of the next scene that we see is the like traumatic ocean raft experience. We see the human character of Halbrand, and then the other character we see is Galadriel, and he kind of pulls up her hair to reveal her pointed ears, to reveal that she is an elf. Now, I'm not really sure why he does that. Could be that he has a hatred of elves, I'm not really sure, or that he just had a traumatic experience, or that he kind of notices that she's different from men, because elves in Tolkien's world are immediately recognized because they're so beautiful, they're so powerful, they're just super cool.
Like my boy.
Legolas.
Legolas. Yeah.
I know his name
There you go.
because that's what we used to call stegosaurs on ours. Legolas.
That's true.
That's so disrespectful. A
To the-
stegosaurus.
How dare you?
They're very good at getting narco berries.
Yeah, that's facts, dude. You need narco berries. Anyway, once again, not the
Okay. All right. So then the next scene we see is kind of fiery, flamey, and I believe that that's the meteor that we saw earlier. Now, Not really sure who that is. This is just totally going out on a limb here, but I have a couple theories. Could be the Mire if it's on a later half of the show. And to put that in perspective, they're like the demigods kind of in Middle Earth, and Gandalf was a Mire, Sauron was a Mire, and I have this theory that it could be one of the blue wizards that are talked about in Tolkien's works but are never actually written about. Like, he didn't go into depth about them. So there was 5 wizards, and we only know 3 from previous movies, which is Gandalf, Radagast, and Saruman. But there were 2 others that we never see. So I think it could be that, or my other theory is that it could actually be Anatar, aka Sauron, arriving back to Middle Earth.
Interesting.
But I'm not really sure how that lines up time-wise, but we'll see. And in that scene, he's grabbing the hand of like the short, stubby figure with bushy hair, which I think is one of the Harfoots. They're said to play a pivotal role in this show, so we're gonna see kind of where that leads. But that's where my theory that's definitely a Harfoot grabbing Meteor Man's hand. I'll just call him that for now, Meteor Man.
Meteor Man.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
All right.
We're talking superhero now, so this is my realm.
Meteor Man.
Okay, the next thing we see is a dwarf swinging an axe and a rock breaks in half, and the scene kind of changes. I think it has like different sets, but I'm not really sure why. But that could possibly be the forging of one of the rings, but also not sure where that lines up time-wise, because from what I'm picking up, the rings have already been forged. So maybe it could be a flashback, but not really sure.
It's the axe.
It's the ring.
It's the ring.
Okay, and then in the next scene, we have like a man jumping up. He's manacled, chained, and he has like this axe thing in his hand, and he's like going for something. For what, we're not really sure, but I'm thinking maybe it's an enslaved man, because at the time, the whole like mankind kind of were enslaved and were enthralled by Morgoth, who was the original. He was the OG Dark Lord, and Sauron was actually his lieutenant. So they kind of enslaved men and elves, and I'm thinking that this could be a leftover remnant of that, and he's still enthralled and having to work and all this stuff. Or my other theory, well, this could kind of go together, is that it's Halbrand. Halbrand, the man we see in the sea floating around on the bow, who has the dark past, thinking that it could possibly be him with the axe.
Interesting.
Okay. And then kind of the last scene we get that's really worth noting is the elves fighting. Now, I'm kind of disappointed with this, because we went from majestic Peter Jackson LOTR trilogy, elven armor, super cool, to like, they had these flat bowl looking helmets. Not a big fan of that. And also, the elf that we see that doesn't have a helmet on, he has short hair. That's another thing to point out. Elrond, young Elrond, has short hair, so not really sure about the short-haired elf things, but we'll see where that goes. And the man in the clip of the elves fighting is rumored to be Finrod, and he's actually the brother of Galadriel, or one of Galadriel's brothers, and they're kind of like the last noble house of the elves that is really standing, aside from Gil-galad. But Gil-galad's from another descended line, and he's actually the High King. So, yeah. That's pretty much the breakdown of that trailer.
So, if I were to watch this, I'd be like, I guess, somewhat knowledgeable. I'd still be missing like 1,000 years of history.
Yeah,
I'd be more knowledgeable about what's happening. Are they like? Do you think the show will like explain the descent, like who these people end up descending to?
Yes.
Or are you just assumed to know that?
I think they will, because, like, when I was talking about Numenor and that island and kind of, the kings of that island, actually, when, this is, like, the fall of Numenor happens, and those people actually come and found Gondor, which is the kingdom we see, like, super big in the Return of the King, Aragorn,
okay.
The king. So, definitely think that we will see where they're, like, the ancestors of those characters. And also it's confirmed that Elendil, young Elendil, who is the one who cuts off actually, no. Young Isildur is supposed to be in the show, and he's the one that we see in like all the Lord of the Rings movies that cuts the finger off Sauron's hand that has the One Ring, and he's confirmed to be casted, and so is his dad, Elendil.
Okay.
So we'll definitely see them.
I have a stupid question. Did someone? You think someone cast that meteor like a wizard?
No, I think the meteor was the wizard.
Well, this is
So-
our Fortnite now.
Arriving to Middle
The
Earth.
visitor.
So it was like a. Is it gonna take out Dusty Depot? I'm kidding. And so it was like a flaming ball, right? Here's my dumb question. Could it be my boy Smaug?
No.
Okay.
This is just like when we went to go watch Dune. I have no idea what's going on.
I'm just naming characters
Yeah.
I know at this point.
Yeah, and proving that you know at least something.
Good job.
Well, but anyway, I mean, good breakdown.
That's very extensive.
Yeah, so it looks like we'll be doing an episode breakdown of this show with Maddie.
And probably, you think we'll get some more trailers? Because this was a teaser.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
this
yeah.
was just a teaser. Really, honestly, not that much to go on. There's no talking aside from, the voiceover. So, still not really sure what's going to happen in this show, to be honest. But,
That's a good thing, really, I guess. Well, I mean,
it's
if they
good.
stray from the source material, then it's a bad thing. But like,
It's good and scary. I know we know that recently Amazon Prime did the Wheel of Time show,
Yeah.
which is based on a huge popular fantasy series, really almost as big as Lord of the Rings. It was kind of the predecessor or the successor of Lord of the Rings, but they kind of geared that, toned it down to make it more for like teenagers, which I'm worried they're going to do with this show. And I really don't want that to happen.
yeah,
But
definitely not.
We'll see.
But-
Hopefully, next trailers give us some more info.
Yeah, for sure. But
Yeah.
keep it vague in a good way. So, but I mean,
Yeah,
that's pretty
yeah,
much
sure.
it. So, like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe for more content, and we'll see you in the next one.